everyone, and thank you for joining us for our final panel of the day. The topic of this panel is South Asia in 2020, and it will run from noon to 1:15. For those of you viewing on YouTube live stream, welcome. Please feel free to drop questions into the chat feature at any time. We will compile them and ask as many as possible to our panelists during the Q&A. There will be a short video presentation by most of our panelists, after which the panel leader, Dr. Kailash Kaushik, will run a Q&A with everyone. Please remember that if you're not speaking, to mute your microphone. And I do want to welcome, the majority of this panel is from Christ University and MediaMeet, and we are really excited to have you with us. Now I'd like to introduce the panel leader, Dr. Kailash Kaushik, Assistant Professor at the Department of Media Studies at Christ University.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Welcome, everyone. It's been a very, very interesting day, very interesting speeches, and this is the last panel/paper presentation, and I would like to welcome you all. Just a few more housekeeping tips I do want to tell our viewers also who are watching on YouTube. When you do post a question, if possible, please do write who you are actually asking the question to, because we have about 5 really distinguished researchers with us, and it would really help us to direct the right question to the right person. Without taking any more time, let me tell you about the format of the session. I will be introducing each of the panelists, and right after each introduction, either their presentation is going to be played or the researchers themselves will present the research. And once all the presentations are done, we will take in questions and have a short Q&A session before wrapping up. So let me start off this session by introducing Professor Sudipto Sharma. He's from the Department of Communications and Journalism, UC Bangladesh. His paper is titled COVID-19 Pandemic, Social Media and Violent Extremism, Experiences from Bangladesh. The COVID-19 pandemic has come as an opportunity for extremist organizations around the world to ramp up their recruitment efforts and to encourage attacks. And since the pandemic certainly caused a lot of frustration among the youth and the younger people who have a lot of time to spend online, the job of the extremist has actually become easy. And Professor Sharma explores the ways in which violent extremists use social media for their own political agenda in Bangladesh, using the content, performing the content analysis of both Facebook and YouTube. So I would like to now request the organizers to play the presentation of Professor Sharma. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Sudipto Sharma from the University of Chittagong. As you see, the title of my paper is COVID-19 Pandemic, Social Media and Violent Extremism, Experiences from Bangladesh. So, Internet is considered as a key means through which extremists are radicalized. Several studies find that violent extremists have been widely using ICTs for propagating their goals, recruiting new members, propagating their members' training and lessons for real-life operations. Theorists also say that terrorist groups exploit natural disasters, calamities, and pandemics to validate their ideological worldviews. So COVID-19 pandemic is an opportunity for extremist organizations because the pandemic might cause frustration to some youths who have enormous time to spend online. So here is the narrative of two violent extremist groups named ISIS and Al-Qaeda on coronavirus. ISIS labeled it as God's threat against communist China in figures and procedures. However, when the virus affected Muslim majority Iran, they said that it's a God's punishment for Shia Muslims' idolatry. However, in the beginning, ISIS termed the virus a weapon created by evil America. On the other hand, Al-Qaeda called the virus an invisible soldier of God. Focusing on economic laws of the United States, Al-Qaeda invites Western people to convert to embrace Islam. Here is the scenario of Bangladesh. studies find that 82% of violent extremists were originally inspired by social media propaganda. Media report shows that extremists became active online during COVID-19 pandemic to ramp up their recruitment efforts and encourage attacks. At least 12 extremists left the country to join in jihad during the lockdown. Police also arrested 17 others who were trying to go to Saudi Arabia for the same reason. Moreover, ISIS claimed responsibility for an attack on a police station in July 2020 that injured 5 people, including 4 police personnel. So I think it's really important to know how the Islamic social media platforms promote violent extremism in Bangladesh in the COVID-19 pandemic. Here is the methodology. Content posted between January 2020 and August 2020 on 10 Islamic Facebook pages are analyzed. 244 corona-related posts are gathered from those public pages. Data is analyzed for dominant themes and narratives in the content. This process is done through qualitative analysis and basic intercoder reliability, looking for manifest and latent qualities in the content. Upon completion, data was quantitatively analyzed while bearing in mind the dominant themes and narratives derived from the qualitative breakdown. So this study finds 8 themes analyzing the data. The first theme is practical responses. There are many posts shared in those pages which are on advice on coronavirus symptom detection and remedies. However, most of the posts were from Islamic narratives. Religious support and resources is the next theme I found. This theme includes those posts which are on imploring God to protect Muslims, praying at home, and reminders of faith. Divine punishment themes includes those posts which say that coronavirus is an act of God, punishment from God, or a soldier of Allah. Call for jihad is the next theme, which directly calls Muslims to join in jihad, saying that it's a sign of ending American-led Western civilization and the victory of Muslims is coming soon. News updates themes include those posts which shared news related to coronavirus. However, most of the news they shared is supported by the Islamic narratives. Call for practice Islam includes those posts which say that this virus is a test from Allah, it's a sign of resurrection, and embrace Islam. Criticism on mismanagement is the next theme. There are many posts which criticize the government actions on the coronavirus management. They also criticize the corrupted businessmen who hike the price of daily products to make profits. Conspiracy is the last theme I have found. There are several posts which say that this virus is being created or spread by unbelievers and the West. So this kind of pictures are widely shared in those pages. The first picture shows that the virus is coming from the Allah, and the second picture is asking a question that whether the Imam Mahdi is coming. According to Islamic belief, Imam Mahdi will appear at the end of the times to rid the world of evil and injustice. Here is the breakdown of themes and narratives. You can see that most of the post, which is 25% post, is actually on call for practice Islam. 23% post is on practical responses. 21% post is on religious support and resources. 14% post is on divine punishment. 5% post is on call for jihad, and 3% post is on conspiracy. So this study finds that narratives of Islamic social media platforms and violent extremist groups are similar. Social media is actually creating a moral ground for these groups, although most of them do not call for jihad directly. So I think law enforcement agencies and service providers should monitor these platforms. Moreover, creating effective counter narratives and spread those narratives widely in social media is also necessary to eradicate violent Islamic extremism from this country. So that's all my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sharman. Moving on, next we have Dr. Manchu Anglu Kami from the SVKM College of Arts, Science and Commerce, Mumbai. Her topic is mediatization, infodemic and online propaganda during the COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Kami is looking at the coronavirus pandemic, which has brought out this new normal, which is a word I think a lot of us have grown averse to, which is also, at a time which is characterized by a lot of digitization. There's a lot of misinformation, fake news, disinformation going around. And there's also a very specific way of creation of content where people are consuming and producing at the same time. So this has caused a lot of complicated information ecosystem. And in this context, Dr. Kami tries to study and discuss the role of different new media platforms as communication and representative information tools during the pandemic. But further, it also analyzes the mediatization of certain misinformation cases and discourses, online propaganda during the pandemic. And finally, like all good research, some good praxis with highlights on policy directives on media literacy based on these emerging themes. A very interesting study, and I would like for the presenters for the video to be presented. Thank you.
Hello all, this is Dr. Machin Wangdev Kamai from Usha Praveen Gandhi College of Arts, Science and Commerce, Mumbai, India. I would like to share a gist of my paper on mediatization, infodemic and online propaganda during the COVID-19 pandemic. The power of the internet to build composite application in a service-oriented fashion has given rise to disinformation and circulation of fake news, which is a complex phenomena in the digital ecosystem and landscape requiring analysis from different angles. The current COVID-19 pandemic has witnessed large-scale spread of misinformation, rumors, manipulation, and mismanagement of information and of communication, content, and processes. The advantage that new media provides with its democratic platformatization of content and all its utopian ethos has added further challenges. It is in this context that this study first aims to discuss the role of different new media platforms as communication and representative information tools during the current pandemic. Secondly, the study analyzes the mediatization of some misinformation cases and discourses of online propaganda. Third, the study highlights policy directives on media literacy based on these emerging themes and geopolitical communication of online spaces. The study uses discourse analysis and grounded theory approach as a methodology. The new media has ushered an era of ubiquitous computing, where digitalization of mass media platforms points to restructuring of media ownership as well as describes the latest development in media forms, distribution, and consumption. Friedrich referred to mediatization as a social and cultural process in and across history, which has involved changes in communication with the transformation in media platforms used. On the geopolitical front, we can also see countries influencing their allies and partners in relation to dealing with different levels of infodemic and cyber attacks. Unethical usage of digital platforms and psychographics through data metrics could quickly turn dystopian in today's second media age. In February 2020, the World Health Organization Director General had rightly stated, "We are not just fighting an epidemic, we are also fighting an infodemic." Usage of political and social bot, fake account, bought followers, fans, likes, reposts, comments, videos with actors engaged in different social media platforms, also targeting traditional media and other forms of communication, have been observed in this process of mediatization. The public sphere in the post-human era is often associated with its performances, allyship, and value. This discursive space, which was earlier defined as one in which individuals could gather to openly discuss social issue, is translated at various levels with the digital activism which occurs in different spaces in the current mediatization process. Representation and interpretation therefore take place in the digital level and also at the socio-cultural level. The COVID-19 geopolitics has seen countries, allies in the information highway airbrushing the coronavirus narrative. There were allegations that Russia has led China and Turkey into bullying European Union. The geopolitics in cyberspace has also led to European Union striking away transatlantic agreement and International Union of Virtual Media based in Iran has been accused of using Facebook and Twitter to spread disinformation about COVID-19. Similarly, Vietnamese hackers were accused of cyber attacks on Chinese government. Italy, the only G7 country to join the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, has now become the latest battleground of economic and geopolitical supremacy. On the information highway of showing allyship, China, along with three South Asian countries, Nepal, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, conducted a webinar to fight COVID-19 unanimously. Meanwhile, India has had geopolitical border tension during the pandemic with China, Pakistan, and Nepal. Moreover, India has invested in the international North-South transport corridor connecting India, Iran, and Russia. These developments have sparked different debates by social media users based on countries which are pro-China and countries which are pro-America in South Asia and beyond. Developments in the information highway during the pandemic have inevitably made South Asia a geostrategic site of contest for leadership. Countries like Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea have been directly and indirectly accused of cyber attacks against United States and Britain. The post-truth propaganda also makes use of Teflon image versus Velcro image dichotomy in strategizing communication processes. The current scenario also points to the elements of manufacturing ignorance in certain cases, which helps in pushing the narrative forward. Propaganda culture and psychographics have made use of the big data with digital footprints of human behavior and reverse engineering as the ultimate tool for targeted information dissemination. Individual activities in these spaces become a social and symbolic act. True to the post-truth phenomena, filter bubbles based on individuals' personalized online experience have been further used as the emotional allure to reinforce and confirms one's own belief and viewpoint. A one-size-fits-all approach will not be applicable in policy directives, definitely. However, policy initiatives on critical communication processes and mediatization need to be further strengthened and contextualized at the level of media platforms, international collaboration and government initiatives, users' awareness of media, multiliteracies, and ethics. As Friedman et al. Have mentioned, the need to know the media, to be the media, and to change the media are crucial initiatives if we are to build effective coalition to transform media institution and processes. This calls for further researches in the line of social dynamics in the digital ecosystem to combat disinformation through media and information literacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. That was very, very interesting. Next, we have Mr. Karthik G from Christ University in India. His topic is entitled The Health Sector in India, Examining of Health Communication Through Media. So Karthik looks at the pivotal role that media plays in general health communication, and especially within India, because the health sector plays a major portion of the economic growth, and which constantly tries to ensure that the population is healthy. And the study which he is going to present examines what the existing role of the government in public healthcare and what is being done by the use of media and communication, the range, scope, and even examines the range of health information to the public. So, I think a very vital and interesting research. I would request Aya to please play the presentation. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Karthik G. I'm from Christ University, Bengaluru, India. I'm currently pursuing my master's in Media and Communication Studies. My research paper is titled as The Health Sector in India, Examining of Health Communications Through Media. We all know that media plays one of the prime aspect of communication among humans. It also plays a very pivotal role in various fields, especially in health sector. When we talk about health sector in India, it's one of the developing sectors since independence. The health sector in India is also one of the major contributor to the country's economy. Media helps building the bridge between the government and the health sector in India by promoting various health awareness programs in television, radio, and advertising. The major objective of these studies were to know the various national schemes and programs regarding health, especially by the central government, such as Ayushman Bharat, the National Health Mission, Pradhan Mantri Swasth Suraksha Yojana. The paper also tries to know about the national communication policies and its objectives to understand media's reach towards public. The specific objective of this paper to know about the public's knowledge regarding the advertisement and health awareness programs by the government. Also to know the impact of health advertisement among the public. The study was mainly conducted with focus on health awareness advertisement in public domain. The study included both primary and secondary data. The primary data was collected through a survey method using questionnaire tool. The survey was conducted in the month of August when the pandemic was still conducted in India. The secondary data was collected through books, journals, and other publications. The survey was conducted through a Google online forms and it resulted with 70 respondents who are of various professionals, postgraduate students, as well as housewives. The research questions were based on the advertisement programs specially sponsored by the government, such as if they were aware of the health advertisement regarding the HIV, pulse polio, COVID advertisement, etc. The overall study resulted with respondents of 70, and among the 70 respondents, 90% of respondents were aware of the health advertisement by the government of India. 67% of respondents were aware of the HIV awareness advertisement. 75.7% respondents were aware of the pulse polio advertisement in television. 97.1 respondents were aware of the COVID-19 awareness advertisement. 65.7% respondents say that health advertisement on television does have an impact on public. 54.3% of respondents say that government has taken efforts in health awareness program to some extent. That means the government has to put some more effort to make sure that the health advertisement does have an impact on them. 61.4 respondents say that public does follow the health instruction given by the government. To the results of this research paper, we can say health communication and government role in circulating right information through media go hand in hand, so that message for the public can be rightly conveyed. To ensure the public is healthy and safe, the government has to make an effort by promoting health advertisement in general. The study results showed the public were aware of the health information and government advertising to a certain extent and does have a certain impact on them. I would like to conclude by saying that when the information travel faster through media sources such as newspapers, television, advertising, social media, the reach of these advertisement is more effective. so that people are aware and people do follow the instruction given by the government to ensure themselves as healthy as well as countries healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you for that. That was a concise yet very informative presentation. Moving on, we have Dr. Akriti Taneja and Ms. Anjulika Ghoshal from the Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Their paper is titled Assessing Factors Influencing Engagement and Participation of Adolescents on Online Media Spaces, a case study of YouTube on informal learning. So we are slightly moving away from the general sense of pandemic and what happened around COVID-19. But however, staying within the boundaries of what one of the major impacts of the pandemic, which was the complete move of education and everything online. Dr. Taneja and Ms. Ghoshal look at the media and information literacy and its core competencies to deem relevant intervention in discerning the agency of children in lieu of their online engagement. They adopt a framework of participatory culture and in the context of informal learning, and they are trying to fill this one gap, especially in academia, which emphasizes on the engagement and participation of children for informal learning, on video sharing sites. And their paper attempts to examine this participatory culture of adolescents for educational purpose while utilizing case studies and focus groups. A very, very interesting topic for all academics in and around, and certainly the media researchers too. I would like to request Arya to play the presentation of Dr. Akriti Taneja and Ms. Anjulika Ghoshal. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Anjulika Ghoshal and I have my co-author Akriti Taneja along with me. The title of our research paper is Assessing Factors Influencing Engagement and Participation of Adolescents on Online Media Spaces, a case study of YouTube on informal learning. In India, approximately two-thirds of internet users are in the age group of 12 to 29 years. The emphasis of our paper is on how adolescents engage with online media, specifically YouTube for informal learning. From our review of literature, we found that YouTube is being used extensively as a source of learning, supplementing formal learning environments. The social interactions on YouTube also determines the magnitude of its impact on the learning of young people. However, we found that there was a limited focus on the aspect of engagement from a child centric approach on video sharing platforms, which further formulated our research problem. That is, there is a lack of engagement amongst adolescents in user generated videos on YouTube for informal learning. Therefore, the research aim of our paper is to assess the participatory culture of adolescents on YouTube for informal learning. We had two broad research objectives, the first being to evaluate the engagement of adolescents with YouTube for informal learning, which led to three research questions based on the determinants of YouTube accessibility, comprehension of YouTube video content, participation in information creation. The second research objective was to assess the barriers in the YouTube engagement amongst adolescents for knowledge creation, leading up to two research questions on the relevance of YouTube as an interactive social media platform and the influential factors for engagement with YouTube. The conceptual framework for our research paper was Participatory Culture and New Media Literacies Framework by Jenkins et al. The framework is based on four forms of participatory culture, that is affiliation, expressions, collaborative problem solving, and circulations, shaping the flow of media along with 11 new media literacy skills.
For our research methodology, we chose YouTube as a case study design and conducted 3 online focus group discussions as our research method. The study population were adolescents in the age group of 13 to 18 years who were chosen via snowball sampling method. 24 adolescents were chosen across varying socio-economic backgrounds for an in-depth analysis. Our analysis and interpretation were reflected upon based on the 4 forms of participatory culture. First, when we talk about affiliations, YouTube is considered to be highly accessible with a no entry barrier enhanced by mobile learning and penetration which reformed their digital pedagogy. However, the barriers to affiliations were majorly on the lines of digital divide with differentiation in internet connectivity and data plans along with the dependence for devices on their guardians. Moreover, some of the content on YouTube also works on the paid subscription model, which inhibits adolescents to access the medium. Secondly, with regard to expressing themselves, YouTube is highly interactive and provides the opportunity to simulate. However, multiple ads and videos leads to disbalance in information exposure and retention, which in turn limits them to synthesize and multitask. It also affects the judgment of the content. There is also an issue of identity disclosure and language barriers which affect the expressive capacities on YouTube. When we reflect on the collaborative problem solving skills via YouTube, factors like personalized and blended learning enable their transmedia navigation and collective intelligence, building a vast pool of knowledge. However, simultaneously, the limited perceived utility of YouTube limits the ICT skills and information literacy skills to a great extent. With regard to circulations, while adolescents found YouTube easy and convenient to use along with the no entry barrier for content creation, however, they did not indulge in content creation due to multiple reasons including information abundance, dominance of market players, lack of qualification, and digital anxiety. Also, there's an inhibition to experiment, sample, and remix content, which further affects the distributed cognition of the platform. Therefore, overall, YouTube has been understood as a platform with partial implications in the context of participatory culture for informal learning amongst adolescents. While they are able to adapt and interact well, but issues of digital inequality and dependence arise. Moreover, although there is a fluidity to the medium which enhances their knowledge, yet there is a dearth of understanding about reliability, issue of information retention, and synthesis of content. Also, there is a scope for personalized and blended learning via the medium. However, adolescents have a limited capacity to interact with the medium. Lastly, although YouTube is considered easy to use and receptive to the learning needs, yet their digital anxiety and limited perceived utility inhibits their content creation skills. It is thus suggested that there is a need to emphasize on media, information, and digital literacies, especially among young people with regard to online media spaces. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's also an extremely interesting study, especially for us who have all shifted to online spaces for teaching. And I think inclusion of YouTube is certainly something we've all been doing for a while. Next, we have Dr. Embassy Lobby from the Department of Media Studies, Christ Dean-to-be University, India. Her topic is titled Assam-Mizoram Border Conflict, Examining the Media Coverage of the Conflict. Dr. Lobby examines the media coverage of the Assam-Mizoram border and from the conflict which started in October 2020. Mizoram shares about 163 kilometers of border with Assam, and the residents of both the states staying close to the border often resort to violent clashes, while both of them accusing each other of encroachment. And in recent years, there's certainly been a rise in the number of conflicts which have received limelight from both the states and the central government. However, in the times of conflict, it is believed mass media can mold people's opinion, belief, and has a huge responsibility to inform the public with greater sensitivity and conscientiousness. Journalists reporting on the conflict could mitigate conflict and certainly foster peace in the region. This particular paper and research discusses on how Mizo journalists cover the border dispute and the ethical issues relating to the fundamental techniques of conflict reporting. Dr. Embassy has also been a journalist herself, so her perspective and research on this is certainly something very interesting, and we look forward to you. Dr. Embassy, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kailash. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Embassy Lobby. I was a journalist for News 18 before I joined Christ University, the Department of Media Studies as assistant professor. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity to present my paper titled Assam-Mizoram Border, Examining the Media Coverage of the Conflict. Now, to give a little context behind the border issue, I would like to take you through why there was a conflict and what was the main reason behind the tension flared up every now and then in this border. So Mizoram is a state in the northeast of India, and this was a part of Assam until it was carved out of the state as a union territory in 1972, and it became a full-fledged state in 1987. So as you can see, it shares a border here with the neighboring states, Manipur, Tripura, and Assam here, and international border with Bangladesh and Myanmar here. And within the state, it shares 163-kilometer border with Assam. And this border is a very, very important lifeline for the people of Mizoram, because this is the main area, area where the national highway where everything was imported from the rest of the state. And this is the economic lifeline for Mizoram. To also give a context behind what conflict is, how this conflict is also welcome, how does it impact the people of Mizoram, is also because, again, when we look at the state, the independent state of Mizoram, as I said, it was carved out of Assam. And to get the statehood, Mizoram had to experience 20 years of conflict. And the Mizo National Front, which is now a ruling political party in Mizoram, in the 1966 declared independence from India, and then went underground for 20 years fighting for this independence, for the statehood. Now, when Mizoram got the statehood, and when the border was demarcated, it was unresolved. There was no clear demarcation, which is why today we are experiencing the state, both Assam and Mizoram, and along with Mizoram, all the neighboring states of Assam are experiencing border issues today. And this border issue was unresolved border issue was already started since the beginning of British rule, when Mizoram and the large part of northeast states were under the British rule. And the Mizos, the people of Mizoram goes by this 1875 demarcation of land here, which is the provision of the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation of 1873. And today—
Embassy, sorry to interrupt. Have you shared the screen?
Yes, I have shared the screen.
We're not able to see it. Can you just try it once more?
Yes. Can you see it now?
Not yet, but that's all right.
All right, I think I can go on, right?
Okay.
So yes, so there are two different views when it comes to border demarcation, because the people of Mizoram and the state of Mizoram goes by the 1875 notification, which was demarcated under the British rule. And then the state of Assam goes by 1933 demarcation. So there is this unresolved border conflict, demarcation of land, which results to a dispute on the land. So those land which was demarcated along the two borders is supposed to be a no man's land or a reserve land where both states could not, should just leave it open. But over the years, what we witness is that there is an encroachment. Both states, both Mizoram and Assam, accuse each other of encroachment of land. And so from the Mizoram, from the Mizo perspective, the Mizos believe that it is also the Bangladesh illegal migrants who have, started this conflict to an extent, because there were also some journalists who said that the area along the border remain relatively calm and peaceful until there is a large influx of Bangladeshi immigrants. That was also one issue. So in March 2018, there was a huge border conflict that arises along the border again. And this violence eruption also led to an injury of journalists and Mizo student bodies. And again, another conflict that arises again was on October 2020. At this time, there is a custodial death of an Assamese in Mizoram. There was a bombing of 2 schools within those land. And there was also a setting up of police checkpost on the reserve area, which eventually led to, the Assam, the residents who were staying along the border to start economic blockade. So they were stopping all the trucks from entering into the states, which kind of cut off the economic lifeline of the people of Mizoram. So this back and forth encroachment, accusation of encroachment happens, and then violence erupted every now and then. So when we look at the media coverage of Mizoram, Mizoram has a huge number of daily publications. Although the number of publications are high, I have to say that the journalists, a lot of journalists reporting from Mizoram are untrained professionals. They are in the profession because they were passionate about it, but did not have a degree as such. They were not trained professionally. So I am looking at 2 of the newspaper, the largest 2 newspapers, and also the cable network in Mizoram. So the media coverage, when the findings out of this is that a lot of the Mizo journalists reporting took only sources from the Mizo officials. Their sources of information are from the Mizoram officials, state officials, police, and Young Mizo Association, which is the largest NGO and quite powerful as well, and the opposition party leaders and the student leaders. Again, all of them are from the state of Mizoram. And there are no direct quotes from the Assam officials. And words such as, one Assam MLA visited the border were used here. There was no further research on trying to understand who is the MLA. And a lot of the content do not have the historical background of the conflict. So the reporters kind of assume that the people of Mizoram knows about the border issues, which remains very crucial, because understanding where the conflict arises from was very crucial for the people to understand the whole issue. Right, and however, as a general public understands that it is the Bangladesh illegal immigrants, but in the newspaper, however, they were refraining from using those words. And the finding also reveals that very few journalists did a ground reporting. A lot of this reporting were done from the capital city of Mizoram, Aizawl itself. And when I interviewed some of the journalists, they were telling me that they did a lot of reporting by calling people, calling their sources. And likewise, even the Assam journalist also reports from their side of the border. So both the reporters do not cross each other's land, and they were reporting from within their border. And there were just about 3 or 4 Mizo journalists who actually went to the conflict zone and did a ground reporting from the disputed border. And while the majority of the newspaper relied on the information, from social media or through a telephonic interview. And one very interesting takeaway, one very interesting thing that one journalist told me is that there is, when I asked them, when did you go to the ground and do a civilian reporting? Did you interview the locals from the residents who were living within the border? And the journalist told me that they did interview, but they do not write that in the report. And I find that very interesting. Why is it that this did not make it to the reporting? And he said that it's not necessary, because I am reporting for a Mizo newspaper. My readers are Mizos, and the perspective of the Assamese is irrelevant, and therefore I did not write this. And it's not just him, the other journalists also were in the same page, saying that we did go and interview, but we did not write that in the report. And so I find that very interesting. And there were also some who said that they do use the word Bangladesh illegal migrants in their reporting, although they do not have any proof whether they are actually Bangladesh illegal migrants or not. So the whole conclusion is that the reporting that the Mizo journalists did were mostly one-sided. The source of information is one-sided. The perspective is from one-sided. And the ethical issues also arises where they are a Mizo first and a journalist second. Yes, thank you so much. Kailash, over to you.
Thank you, Embassy. Thank you for that. Very interesting, and I'm pretty sure a lot of questions might come from that. But before we do take questions, I would request the other panelists also to switch on their videos. And I'm thinking, some of you might have had a few more comments you would want to add to the video presentation itself. So I would like to just invite Professor Sharma. If you have any additional comments which you would want to, present, to us, please take a minute or two to add on to what the presentation we saw.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I just want to say that as my paper was on the violent extremism, I would like to say that the policy of the government should be taken so that the counter narrative on the violent extremism should be spreaded through the social media. However, the counter narrative should be taken so that it doesn't hurt the religious sentiment of the people or the Muslim or any other religious people in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sharma. Now I would like to invite Dr. Manchu Wangilu Kami. If you have any additional comments, please do this time.
Yes, thank you for this time. I would like all of us here who are here already familiarized with the concept of social media that we have been discussing for quite some time now, to reconsider and relook and further, research on the line of how the concept of public sphere has changed with the usage of new media, and how our entire process of communication in the form of being physical and also, physical in the sense at the social and cultural level in terms of communication, and also in terms of virtual collaboration and extension has definitely changed. But as my paper focuses on the line of infodemic and propaganda to a certain extent, how distortion of communication happens at that level. And maybe these are the areas that we can further look upon, as my paper is currently still at an exploratory stage and definitely needs to be further developed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite Karthik. Karthik, if you have any additional comments you would want to add for the presentation which we saw, please do.
Yes, so thank you. It was very nice to be part of among all the researchers here. And as a student, I learned a lot among all these presentations. To add on what the previous commenter said about social media, as we youngsters, we are always into this social media among even this during the pandemic. And we learned, I personally learned so much that how crucial is media and communication in particular these days, and how it's working to bridge gap between the problems and the reality of persons. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Karthik. Dr. Taneja and Ms. Ghoshal, if you have any additional comments, please.
Hi, we are really grateful and honored to be here, part of this. So what we would like to focus on is that one is that children as an audience have not been really looked upon when we talk about any sort of media as such, because they're just being looked up as a passive audience. So when we look at the review of literature as well as what we've researched upon, there's a wide gap. So we really need to focus on children and adolescents specifically as an active audience specifically. That approach is very much needed. Moreover, when there are papers on children and digital media, they're mostly on the lines of digital divide and accessibility, and not so much on understanding and perhaps engagement and participation. So maybe that needs to be reflected upon majorly. That's what we wanted to add. I think, yeah. Sure.
Thank you so much. I do see a lot of questions coming in, so let me get straight to that. And Dr. Embassy, I didn't give you time because you presented in person. Nothing yet.
That's all
So, so I think this question is for Professor Sharma and one of the our from the YouTube audience. The question is that you suggested that the government should monitor people's conversation on social media. Wouldn't that affect privacy? What would you want to say for that?
Thank you for the question. Yes, it is harmful for the privacy. It's really happened. But I think since the extremism, violent extremism have been spreading through the social media, we also know that law enforcement agencies have such capacity to monitor people activities through the social media, and they regularly arrest people through this monitoring. I think it's necessary to eradicate the violent extremism from the country and also from the other countries, because otherwise the violent extremists can easily recruit their members, because several studies already found that violent extremists regularly recruit their members through the social media activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sharma. Let me move on to another question for Dr. Kami. Would you like to reflect on the recent ban of apps such as TikTok and PUBG in some of the South Asian countries in the line of cyber attacks and infodemics in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, these are all interesting interplay of geopolitics, for and against, and recent bans on this are more like a louder statement of the kind of mediatization that would be allowed, would not be allowed. But as far as users are concerned, they would always find their way of getting through it, and then maybe use different platform. But on a larger scale, definitely it's a louder statement of the allyship that we have been talking about. Banning is one way of doing it, but as we said, on the besides the virtual level of banning and putting a boundary over there, but even on the other aspects of geopolitics, we have other forms of allyship which is happening. So it's like one side of the coin and the other side of coin, which is simultaneously happening. More of a kind of show on the larger platform to make a statement, which can be taken in different ways. Yeah, but as far as users are concerned, they will always find their way.
Right. Dr. Taneja and Ms. Ghoshal, you seem to have an answer ready for the same question. Would you want to comment on the same?
Well, we do not have an answer as such, but we were discussing the same exact thing, that how it's geopolitical in nature, not really because of infodemic as such, the ban on TikTok as such. So yeah, that's what we're reflecting upon.
Right. I mean, certainly, I think a lot of things that we have seen in the papers which have been presented, I think geopolitics plays a huge role here. There's a question for Karthik. Karthik, so what were the prominent modes of communication for spreading health messages during the pandemic drive, during the lockdown in India? So the prominent modes of communication. Karthik, are you there? I think we seem to have lost Karthik.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, sorry, please.
Yes. Can I get the question, please? Because there's a lot of net.
Certainly.
Yes.
What were the prominent modes of communication for spreading health messages during the pandemic lockdown in India?
Yes, in particular India, there's a lot of television campaigns were taken down through including celebrities, as well as there was an automated telecall caller tune that was done by the government of India to.
I think we seem to have lost the audio with Karthik. We will get back to him shortly. We have a question for Dr. Taneja and Ms. Ghoshal. The question states, are there distinct needs for digital literacy among different groups? I think you also talked about, customizing these things. Could you shine some light on that?
We guess it definitely there's a need for digital literacy across different groups and across different spheres of life as well, and that is specialized because each of us consume media in different ways. So different kinds of literacy, whether it's digital literacy, information literacy, media literacy, and across all age groups and spheres of life is needed. So
Thank you. I think the next question is for Dr. Embassy Lobby. What role is social media playing relating to the dispute? How does it compare to the traditional media channels? So between the Assam Mizoram dispute, what's the social media role and in comparison to mainstream media?
Well, it plays a huge role, because a lot in the earlier conflict, or during the Mizo insurgency from 1966 to 86, there were very few media available to report our side of the story, or say the Mizo narrative. And when we talk about border conflict, it's about a narrative, right? It's a war on narrative. And here, a lot of social media where there is a fight for narrative on the mainstream media, that that both sides, and especially the Mizo side, the perspective is missing in the mainstream media. And there has been a lot of uproar, or say a huge cry in the social media by especially the youngsters and educated youngsters who were condemning the even the state media, right, the local media. Why are you not reporting? And even when you report it, why is it that these reports are not reflected in the mainstream media? So that kind of motivate youngsters, young educated people to use social media to win on the narrative war. So that becomes a very, very positive thing for at least the Mizo people, and they definitely went ahead, leaving some traditional media behind, because traditional media is kind of very restricted also in terms of their reporting. Like I said, they're very restricted. And however, social media also allows young people to raise their voice, and that was one really good thing that emerged out of this conflict, at least for the Mizo people.
Just as a follow-up, what do the youngsters in Mizoram, and maybe you might have an idea with Assam too, think of as a solution to the dispute? Where do they see the conflict going, and where is the solution according to them?
So when this conflict, when the tension was really high, when there was a few talk between the central government and the state of Assam government and Mizoram government, and even at a political level, they could not find a lasting permanent solution, because I think they were just trying to mitigate it for some time. And this is going to be a problem with every time there is an election happening in both the states, this is likely to arise again. So even for the youngsters, they do understand that the permanent solution has to come at a political level. It's not something that can be resolved with violence. They do understand that, but it just violence seems to be the resort that they're taking at this moment right now.
Thank you. I think a question for Professor Sharma now. And this, I think, is based on the general, I think this is more of a methodological question too. You seem to have been doing content analysis of extremist groups, and you've been using both Facebook and YouTube. one, wouldn't this automatically hamper your own social media algorithm, and give you a lot of suggestions of similar things? And have you faced anything like that? And from a methodological perspective, how do you ensure your own social media feed and the algorithm affecting the search itself?
Actually, those pages I have analyzed are the public pages. I analyzed the public the posts. So these pages are public to all. So it doesn't hamper my social media experiences. I just collected those posts which are related to the coronavirus pandemic and the violent extremist messages. So this doesn't hamper actually my social media use.
Okay, thank you. A question for Dr. Kami. How can we promote media literacy in South Asia beyond borders to fight the infodemic?
Yeah, yes, as mentioned earlier in the presentation as well, we have had several initiatives being taken by international and all the popular media platforms like Facebook, Google, for instance, in trying to remove say for instance fake news. We have had checking platforms, as we all know, like alt news, boom fact, so on and so forth, which have been helping in checking the level of infodemic, for instance. And besides that, of course, there have been international collaboration and government initiatives between United Nations, World Health Organization, and various local governments, and even India, for instance, we have had Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, which has been, collaborating in terms of the kind of news that is infiltrating at different level within the local region. But besides that, of course, we would definitely require more users awareness and media multi-literacies at different levels, as one of the question was posed, different kind of knowledge that needs to be spread out at different grassroots level across border, as you have mentioned, so that we will be able to, come across combating this element of infodemic at a better level. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we also have Karthik back online. Karthik,
Yes.
along with the previous question, let me
Yes.
just add this question too. There's another question which says, how did the government integrate digital and traditional modes of communication for disseminating the preventive health measures? Were there any differences in the rural and urban areas?
Oh, yes. To answer to my previous question, sorry, there was an internet glitch. So the government had taken a lot of initiatives, like through television campaigns using celebrities, especially. The major one was the automated caller tune that everyone gets to use, like be aware of the coronavirus and take measures and uses. And government also came up with an particular app, Arogya Setu, to ensure that public get the COVID information. They also came up with an COVID portal website which gave us the daily updates about the number of cases increasing, decreasing, the death and stuff. So the major initiatives were taken by the government, to be honest. And secondly, to answer the difference between the rural and urban, the traditional method were through the posters and pamphlets. And I, coming from a rural place, I can say that still we call a guy comes up with a tumte, we call it in our places. So he still comes up and tells that be aware of the virus, wear a mask and stuff. So it is still the traditional way is one of the major way of communication in India, in the backward rural places actually. And other mode of the modernized way we can tell the television advertisement, the caller tunes helped. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Karthik. I think we have a question for Dr. Taneja and Ms. Ghoshal. Have you looked at online learning platforms like Khan Academy? And if so, are they treated similarly to YouTube by adolescents, or is there a different kind of engagement when it is considered academic as opposed to informal learning?
Okay, I'll like to answer that because earlier in another of my paper, I talked about the education communication apps that included Unacademy, Khan Academy, and
all kinds of education communication apps and the way they are performing with the youth or the children here. So now the difference here is, see, YouTube as a platform is not just engaging for education, they are also engaging infotainment videos, right? The content is like, it is a good amalgamation of information and entertainment. But on the other hand, Khan Academy is totally, it's mostly education based. And the structure in which all the videos are portrayed and the information is posted, it's a very, uniform, traditionalized structure. And even though they are doing great with the students, and that paper of mine had already had a finding that the Unacademy was huge popular with this COVID pandemic affecting the regular traditional classes. Actually, children of particularly the classes of 9 to 12, they focused on these apps to, so that they don't lose the year, they don't lose the pressure for education. And they did used it for a very long time, but somehow some of them felt that while they went to YouTube for education, it was very distractive in nature, because you ought to get a lot of feeds, the way you said, that it becomes distracting for students to go ahead with YouTube. But with Khan Academy, you will anyhow get the suggestion of only education oriented pointers. So yeah, that was the difference that I found.
Thank you. I think Embassy, one more question for you. The question reads, it's surprising to know that people's lived experiences were ignored in the final reports. What can be done to overcome such gatekeeping?
Well, I think we just need to reorient the journalist again and have some professional, training seminars, workshops, because like I said, a lot of journalists in Mizoram are untrained. They are in the profession because they're passionate about it, and they started from very small circulation and they started growing it. And so there has to be a constant intervention from the state government or from academics to kind of educate them about objectivity, neutrality, especially with when it comes to conflict reporting and safety, or all these things. So I think that is what is necessary. And I think it's also important that academics also started offering this kind of courses, because in Mizoram there is only one institution that offers mass communication. So there is no institution that could have trained journalists. So I think that is what is necessary.
Thank you, Embassy. There's one question for the whole panel. So I'll read out the question and call out individual participants. You may respond to that, and then I think we can wrap after that. What policy changes and education investments would be useful to advance the benefits and limit the deficits of certain social media users across all ages? So Professor Sharma, would you want to start about policy changes required to, I think, moderate and control social media? Professor Sharma, are you there? Okay, I think till he joins back, Dr. Kami, can you comment on the same?
Yes, I think we have mentioned this slightly before, but definitely, like we said, one size does not fit everybody. We need to contextualize, and we do see there are so many variation even within a particular context. And definitely, as far as policies are concerned, they need to be contextualized. Otherwise, as we all know, there's a big difference between what is access and what is equity, even in terms of understanding the kind of knowledge gap that exists with the usage of technology. Just having it and using it does not mean the same for everybody. So the basic thing would definitely be contextualization as far as policies are concerned. And that would, of course, require more homework.
Right. Thank you. Karthik, would you want to comment on policy changes required for, even in general, health education, health literacy, and information dissemination on social media?
Oh, well, sir, I'm particularly not aware of this concept. So what personally I feel is like there is a necessity of bringing up policies, whether in central government or state government, more of connecting with the rural areas actually, or whether if there is a policy existing, it might not be reaching the people that might reach to. So I
Mhm.
think the more of communication in terms to be is necessary is what I feel.
Okay. Thank you, Karthik. I think we seem to have Professor Sharma back. Professor Sharma, would you want to answer the question about what policy changes would be required, to advance the benefits and limit the deficits of social media? Professor Sharma, I think you're on mute. I think there seems to be a problem. Let me actually call upon Dr. Taneja, who actually has a question for Embassy. You can go ahead and ask, and we can get back to this right after that.
Right. Hi, Miss Levy. So, are there any alternative channels of communication that may be available? So, we have alternative newspapers which are specifically on digital platforms on a national level, but are there such alternative channels of communication to maybe talk about the issues that people from Mizoram face on a day to day basis in this context of Assam and Mizoram conflict?
Well, that's a very, very interesting question. I've been wondering, because when it comes to mainstream media, it's such a far off country, and the interest is only when there is some, violence and where there is a mass casualty, or, that's when the national media kind of focus on. By the time it's kind of late for us. And I think very interesting is, apart from social media and mainstream media, Mizos are known for their rich oral history, because our history is orally passed on from one generation to another generation. So we have very rich history of folk stories, folk songs. Music is, they're very, very talented. So I would like to encourage even the young Mizos to write songs, poems, telling their side of story, make movies, because film industry is almost non-existent in Mizoram. There are only a few movies that have come up in the last decade. So filmmaking, documentaries, all these things are our way of telling the story. But at the same time, it also has to be factual, and it has to have those factual information.
Thank you, Embassy. Thank you, Dr. Taneja, for the question. Embassy, there seems to be a shout out for you on YouTube from LC Zomi, saying that you did a good job. And I think that goes out to all the participants on this panel, which has been extremely interesting. We did learn a lot. I'm pretty sure if we had a little more time, we could do deeper in each of the topics. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Sharma, Dr. Kwame, Karthik, Dr. Taneja, Ms. Ghoshal, and Embassy for taking part in this paper presentation and discussion. Thank you so much for your insights. I would like to thank FSU, my alumnus, for providing me this opportunity. And, I look forward to you all being in Media Meet 2021 again. With that, I think we will wrap, and I would hand over the platform to Rebecca again. Rebecca, over to you.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. This was an excellent panel, very interesting, lots of really great presentations. Thank you so much. A fantastic end to our second day of the South Asian Media and Cultural Studies Conference. I do want to remind everyone to come back tomorrow. For our final day, we start at 8 a.m. We have some great speakers. We have a ethnographic film and a discussion with the director, as well as other discussions about film in South Asia and other media platforms. I do also encourage people to link the conference on social media, and sorry, I just lost it. That is hashtag SAMCS 2021. We greatly appreciate your presentations, as well as the viewers on YouTube Live. And I understand it is getting quite late in South Asia. So thank you for pushing through with us. And we will see you guys in the morning for us and tomorrow night for you guys. Thank you so much.